Hey everyone, my name's Mr. Kint online. I've decided to set up a YouTube channel for chess, mainly because in the last year I've got quite into chess quite a bit after not playing it really for quite a few years, and I've decided that I want to get quite, or not good at it, but better at it than I am now. I'm by no means a good player at all. I'm not playing for it. I've exclusively played online in the last year. But I've decided that if I want to get better, I want to learn things, and so I'm going through books. And I saw the things that the YouTube channels have done, how they've taught me and how they've taught other people, and so I thought I'd do something like that just to, not being too selfish, but to help me improve as a player, and hopefully let other people know about things that are out there in chess, and hopefully analyze games myself. To start with, I'm just going to do a few traps that have worked for me in Blitz. I'm hopefully going to do my own games and some Grandmaster games later on, but I think for the minute I'm just going to focus on a few little tricks of the trade, and show them how they can work for you. Now, the one I'm going to show you today is the Legal trap. It comes in the Italian game, and it's probably my favourite trap because it offers a really cool queen sacrifice, and which is obviously cool. But in Blitz it seems to work quite a bit. I've had quite a few wins with it online, and I think it'll work for you as well if you've not already used it. But anyway, let's get into a position. So we've got e4 from white, followed by e5, knight f3, knight c6, and then bishop c4 from white. This is the Italian game, or transposing into it. More often than not in this position, you'll more likely to see bishop b5, which is entering a Roy Lopez. And if you see that more often, you'll see a6 from black, then a4, which is all book from Royal Pass. There's so many book lines in it. I'm not going to show you much more, but you've probably seen this position 100 times. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence. So if you just go back to the bishop being on c4, and black may often than not play d6, the Philidor defense, opening a nice line for its light square bishop. But we're just going to ignore that for the minute. We're just going to develop our knight to c3, and then with that nice diagonal for the bishop, it's going to come down and pin the knight to the queen with bishop g4. And in this position, this is where the Legal trap starts to kind of brew. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. And it starts with this move, h3, putting the question to the bishop. Now it can't really go back down its own diagonal here. It'd just be a waste of tempo. So the only real options are taking the knight on f3 or moving back to h5. Now taking the knight on h3, I've not done the variation, but it would basically be knight takes, queen takes, and white has a mate threat here on f7, and also a big leading development, 3 pieces developed for the one knight ready to castle, etc. So black may often not won't want to go into that line, and quite a few times in Blitz, and actually to preserve the bishop pair as well. You may often not see h5 from black, preserving the bishop pair, but here white has a great move, exploiting this position. And I'll give you a few seconds to see it if you can't. I'm sure most of you have seen this trap quite a few times, but if not, I'll give you a couple of seconds to have a look, pause the video, and see what move is best for white here. Alright, well, the best move here for white is knight takes e5, seemingly offering the queen for nothing. And like I say, in Blitz especially, like magpies, they'll just see the queen glittery, and black would more often, well, not more often, not if they're not looking properly, will just take the queen on d1. And if they do that, well, you'd be chuckling all the way home because it's mating too, thanks to bishop f7 check, queen moves sorry, king moves to e7, early move, and then the knight comes in on d5, delivering mate. And it's a really good trap to know. I must have beaten at least 5 or 6 players online with it, and that's just through going through the variations. I'm more often than not a d4 player, but if I play e5 sometimes, you'll more often not get into some. If you see a royal pistol end turning up, you just put the bishop onto c4, and this position has often arisen from that. So yeah, it's a really good mate to know. Just a couple of things before I leave you. Say, go back to this position here where the knight's taken on e5, seemingly offering the queen sack. Sometimes black will notice that something's not on. I mean, you don't offer your queen for nothing, do you? And if they notice the mate threat that happens if the bishop takes the queen, then the best response is to retake the knight with knight to c5. But even in this position, white's still going to be up a pawn after the queen takes the bishop on h5. And when the knight takes the Empire bishop on c4, then the queen can just come to b5, deliver check, and when the pawn pushes, the knight's gone. And again, we look in this position, white's massively up in development. It's a pawn up. All of black's remaining pieces are on the back rank. White's ready to castle. White can push up the d2 pawn, liberate the bishop. I mean, you would clearly favour white in this position in the opening. He's definitely got the better out of it. And so that's what to do if black notices the position after this move. Sorry, just give me a second. After this move. Now, a lot of people have commented before, and I was one of them, I'll be honest, I've been guilty of this, is that if you go back early in position, after the bishop comes down to g4, why play h3? I mean, it just seems tempo wasting. Why do we need the bishop to be here? Why do we need the bishop to be here rather than here? Well, this is probably the most important part of the trap, because if we just go back to g4 where the bishops come down, and if the knight takes e5 here, seemingly offering the queen, and you got the mate threat. I mean, if the bishop takes now, it'll be mate anyway, as we've shown. But if, like we've shown in h3 variation, if the knight takes e5, then the mate threat's gone. But in this variation, without h3, the knight takes e5 and it's protecting the bishop. The bishop on h5 is not protected. It would be open to attack. Whereas here, you've still got the threat on the queen from a protected bishop, and you've just basically given up a piece for a pawn, which is not good in any variation really, unless you're threatening mate, which you're not. So that's why h3 is so important. If we just go back here with the bishop coming down to g4, h3 is vital because it pushes the bishop back to here, meaning that this is justifiable, and that if the bishop comes down and takes the queen, then it's history. So thanks for listening. Hopefully I'll do a few more soon, but in the meantime, take care. This is Mr. Kint, and have a good night.